Hey guys, and welcome back to our series where we examine some of the players that the Buffalo Bills have re-signed or locked up long term. Obviously, we have already gone through Greg Rousseau and Khalil Shakir,
And
and
we
today
only have
we're going
half of Joe's face.
to really.
There
It
we
was
go.
the good half, though.
If there was one, I'd believe you.
So today we're going to be talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Joshua Patrick Allen, who got locked up with a very healthy extension and a new toy he gets to play with on the offensive side of the ball as well in Josh Palmer. Guys, before we get to this episode officially, Paul, I mentioned it on a couple episodes ago. We were talking about this is our 13th offseason, talking about the Buffalo Bills. It's to some capacity on a podcast, on some type of platform. We've been through almost all of them that have come and gone over the last 13 years. So in honor of that, you decided that you wanted to list all of the number 13s that we have been privy to in the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
And what did you said you want? Which one of these individuals describes our show?
Yeah. So
or us individually?
No, I think the show. I think we should only go with players who were here when we were, right? So
Yes,
so that would take us back to, was that 2013?
2013, March of 2013.
Oh,
yeah.
so we get we get Stevie.
We get Stevie.
All right,
Absolutely.
let's start from the bottom. So that would mean Stevie Johnson, Desmond Lewis after Stevie Johnson, Kalen Clay, and Kelvin Benjamin actually both had the same jersey number at the same time.
Oh my
Kalen
God.
Kalen Clay he wasn't on the team for very long. So Kalen Clay, Kelvin Benjamin, Victor Bolden, Gabe Davis, and Mac Hollins. So of that list, go down into the comments section. Let us know which famous Bills 13 hashtag sports has been to you and meant to you over the years.
I want to say Hollins just for how goofy this is.
See, I was going to say Kelvin Benjamin for how fat we've all gotten since we started.
You put on 6 pounds in 13 years. Shut up.
Yeah, but isn't that like doubling his weight for like? Is it really? Look at percentages.
He moved out of the car seat in these 13 years. That's all I know.
Yep.
So, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, yes, definitely leave it in the comments. Which one of those fabulous number 13s describes hashtag sports on their 13th year anniversary? Obviously, so we're talking about Joshua Allen getting locked up, but obviously, this is more of a financial thing. I think Josh Allen. This extension was going to happen at some point. There was going to be something where they couldn't kick the can down the road anymore. Mickey Loomis and Drew Brees should be an example to the NFL that just moving base salary to bonus and extending it really, Brees actually helped them out quite a bit. If you guys want to check that out, I think Paul has an episode on hashtag sports.
It's in the archive somewhere.
Yeah, it's somewhere, but it was, you just kept kicking the can down the road, and it just didn't do it. So now, being the very savvy businessman as he is, doesn't like to owe players too much. He's made mistakes in the past. We're not denying that. But now he extends Josh Allen and gives him another new weapon, 25-year-old Josh Palmer. Joe, I want to start with you on this. Mm-hmm. Do you think it was premature for the extension, right on time, or what is your thoughts initially on the extension for Allen?
I think it's right on time because we're getting into a point of the people's careers. We just saw Burrow get extended. I believe it was. Lamar Jackson wasn't that long ago. Patrick Mahomes is going to be due for another one here soon. There's gonna be some that come due, and we were talking a little bit before we went on the show here. I mean, you look at this contract, it's really not that bad. I mean, what we know about so far, there's still some particulars that are out there. But you look at the average per year, I mean, he's still making less than Dak per year.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that great?
Just crazy. And this reminds me a lot of the first time we re-signed, we went after Josh Allen, got him a big contract. In 5, 6, 7 years, he's not even going to be a top 10 paid quarterback in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how crazy the quarterback market is in the NFL. And in 5, 6 years, we're going to look at this contract and say, this is a wonderful contract. Mm-hmm. This is so team friendly. And I think that Brandon Beane, the Buffalo Bills, decided to do it at the right time, because you look at all these other big extensions that the Bills are going through. It starts with Josh Allen. And we saw that this season. And this past season was great for Josh Allen, because this was the season that, remember, he didn't have any weapons. This was the season that, oh man, Stephon Diggs, that's the only reason why he did well. Well, not true. So let's go pay our unicorn, and let's make sure we pay him the right amount now, so we don't have to pay him more later.
Right. And
Absolutely.
it is a NFL record in guaranteed money.
Right.
Okay. Right?
Yep.
Like, yep. Okay. What that does do is it does limit you with going, back to the well to restructure his deal over and over and over again, right?
Yes.
So a ton of guaranteed money does limit you there. But the fact of the matter is, you know what you have, right? Like, there's no reason to play around with the numbers anymore. Lock it up, make him feel rewarded. He's just the NFL MVP. And the truth of the matter is, he's making $55 million per year in APY. That's average per year. And that puts you with Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, and Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
So, I mean, come on, right?
Yep.
Like, this is the market. And honestly, last year he was outside of the top 10 quarterbacks for as far as overall cap hit, remaining cap hit. So, I mean, it was just one of those situations where you got to go back to the table, just lock him up, get it over with, get it done, because now this puts pressure on teams like Miami with Tua, right? Now it puts pressure on teams like Kansas City with Mahomes. It's going to put more pressure on Baltimore with Lamar. I mean, you could have bought 3 Sam Darnolds for the money you just gave Josh Allen. I mean, come on. But it also puts pressure on teams like Tampa with Baker, right? Like, this type of deal is now a watermark, because while it's in an NFL level or NFL record guaranteed money, the fact of the matter is he's 29. So you're still praying for 4 more good years out of Josh Allen. Like, that's what this contract is banking on. And if you could put pressure on other teams to have to do something similar, and you got to the table first, we talk about it all the time. If you're not first, you're last when it comes to contracts, right? You can't be dovetailing somebody else. It's just going to cost you too much money.
Yeah, I
and
remember
you could talk about like the guarantee, but in my opinion, even though it's the most ever, it's not Kirk Cousins, it's not Deshaun Watson, who are fully guaranteed, where you can't do anything with that contract once it's there.
Right.
So you had to give him something, and yet he still was willing to work within a confinement of, I'm not gonna have a fully guaranteed contract and be that guy. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think one of the underrated things that Paul mentioned as well is the fact that the pressure that this puts on other teams and other players that are comparable to Josh Allen. Now, obviously, we here in Buffalo, unfortunately, think that he has no equal. I mean, just the way it happens. But in the NFL landscape, how it works out is that all of those players, and the reason why Paul mentioned Baker, same draft class. You're talking about Lamar Jackson now is probably going to be looking for his extension in a couple of years, and what's that going to involve? And it does put pressure on these other teams, especially the one in the division. I remember vividly making an episode with you, Paul, when we talked about the new deal of Russell Wilson and how that put pressure on the 49ers when they had Kaepernick.
Right.
And we saw how that back and forth went in, and I think it was in the low hundreds. That's how far we've come, ladies and gentlemen. There was a big deal back then, and now it is what it is. But I think locking up Josh is one of those things where you had to kind of do it. In a couple of years, he's, like Joe said, he's gonna hop out of the top 10, and that's a good thing. In where he's going to feel like he's being rewarded for the work he's going to do and give this organization. Also, you're not breaking the bank on a quarterback, so you're able to spend money other places to help and surround him with horses. And that is the biggest thing that I think is befalling the Cowboys, is the fact that so much money is thrown at Dak that they can't spend money anywhere else. They're literally locked into him and everybody else. So I think that's a beautiful thing. And just to kind of put a tail on this, he does have a new weapon in Josh Palmer, signed from the LA Chargers. He was a free agent, obviously. 3 years, 36 million. Interesting amount of the length and the price tag. As we talked about the Shakir episode, His is only coming out to around 13 something, maybe 12, 13 something if you APY. Joe, let me go to you and I'll go to Paul.
Sure.
What does Josh Palmer in this offense bring to it as far as a weapon? Is he a Mac Hollins, just younger? What do you think is going to be his role in this offense?
No, I think if you look at the lack of ability of Buffalo Bills wide receivers to create separation, especially in man coverage, that's what he gives you. He gives you a different type of weapon for Josh Allen, which is a very good thing. And again, this is something you and I talked about before the show started. The 3-year contract for a 25-year-old who has seen at most 11 games started, I think, each season. Throughout his first 3 seasons, I think most he started was 11 games. That's an interesting timeline, and that means he has something to prove. So we'll be very interested to see what this does for not just Josh Allen, but for him as well, because this is a chance for him to kind of shine when he was in offense before that really didn't give him that ability to sign, because a lot of those years he was behind Keenan Allen or someone else. And this past year, of course, first year with Harbaugh, things didn't line up that well. But yeah, I think this gives him some opportunity. And again, obviously does something different for this Buffalo Bills offense, especially when we're talking about separation and being maybe that guy to drive the ball deep downfield.
Yeah, and at 6'1", he's competitive to remain on the outside. Like that's where you want him. You signed a guy to compete outside for you. And with the money that you're spending, sure, right? And now, this is also a player who in 4 years only has 10 touchdowns, right? So again, I think this just shows you how crazy that free agent market can be. We'll talk about it with Khalil Shakir. Go back and watch that episode. Like, the fact of the matter is the free agent market is crazy when it comes to wide receivers, because you vastly overpay for the performance that you get. And oftentimes you end up spending a ton of money on a player who is a marginal talent. I'm not going to say that Josh Palmer is a marginal talent. I think he's had to suffer through really bad quarterback play. Like Justin Herbert, every time I watch him, I feel like there's so much meat on the bone every game that I watch from him, every single game. And this year was certainly no exception, right? Like, I never once watched a Chargers game and was like, you know what? I think Herbert's gonna bring this team back. They're down 10. I think no. Like it. So I'm willing to accept the underperformance, because there's some really fun stats about Palmer that, again, kind of play on the fringe. That is probably the reason why Buffalo was so interested in him. They love guys that can just flat out catch a ball. I'll be honest with you, Justin Herbert's ball placement is awful, but Palmer consistently had a catch percentage of 60% or more with bad ball placement from a quarterback. Like, those are things that you just, I will take that, right? Like, they want guys that can just catch the football. And you're not going to be playing behind the ghost of Keenan Allen or Mike Williams when he was healthy. Like, honestly, that's when Palmer was getting the most run, was when Keenan and Williams were both out. So I think now he's got an opportunity to come up. It is a relatively even playing field amongst that wide receiver room. I think Buffalo's shown that if you can earn opportunities here. He's making good money. I don't know what this means for Curtis Samuel, because now you just kind of continue to drive him down the pecking order, although he's kind of an odd fit regardless. And, this is just Buffalo moving on, right? Like, that's it. But we could be seeing the same thing that we see the Bills do with other positions, where we're just going to kind of like pay everybody, like about the same. And we're just going to like let things be okay with that. And,
everybody eats.
Yeah. See, there it is, right? There it is. Like I said, and to Paul and to Joe's point, when we were talking about it earlier, the length of the deal is really the marker for me. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is 25 years old. He signs a 3-year deal. Obviously, the Bills can get out of it. They love signing those deals in that respect. But you're talking about a guy who is literally betting on himself that at 28 years old, he is going to perform so well with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills that he is going to go to the upper echelon and get a big money deal, either with the Bills or with somebody else. So you are going to get
literally the best years out of Josh Palmer, starting at 25 years old, when he has some experience in the NFL. But like you said, Paul, he was literally behind two different players all the time. And for Justin Herbert to get on his third read, I'd like for him to get on his first read every once in a while. You know what I mean? So it was tough for Palmer to kind of shine in that, but for him to try to bet on himself, albeit $36 million for 3 years is it's not cheap. It's not cheap for wide receiver, but we've seen wide receiver deals explode in the past few years. So I think it's a reasonable deal. I think Josh Palmer is going to have, a lot of fun playing with Josh Allen, and maybe one of those things where he probably could have signed for $40 million, 4 years, $40 million with another team. And that team might've been the Browns, or it might've been the Raiders, or it might've been, he was like, well, I'll play with Josh for $36 million. Thanks. I'll be okay over here. And, he's one of those guys, like you said, 6'1", about 215. So it's not that he has the height to play on the outside. He also has the physicality to play on the outside if need be. And this is one of those things where you may see a Curtis Samuel not make it through camp. And that would be okay. That literally would be okay. If you want to keep him for a depth piece and just inactive, okay. You already paid for him, essentially. So, I mean, I have to look up this contract deals, but the deal is this. Palmer adds something to your offense that you didn't have last year, and that's what this Buffalo Bills offense is all about, adding something that they didn't have the previous year. And does it move the needle for me? Not really, but it's still a positive move that the Buffalo Bills offense is doing. And we have to remember, he was drafted in 2021. That was the year that the Buffalo Bills decided to go back-to-back with their defensive ends because they had two 35-year-old defensive ends on the roster currently. He was the third-round pick. So take from that what you will.
And Mar, that's a great point. I was just about to bring that up. The fact of the matter is we've now had this regime long enough to be benefiting in free agency from this previous scouting of draft classes in the past, which is when you have a ton of regime change, you don't get to benefit from the things that you've already been through. Yes, the Bills selected Boogie Basham at 61 overall. The next wide receiver off the board was Josh Palmer at 77. So, the fact of the matter is he was the number one wide receiver, could have been the number one receiver on their board, and they might have legitimately talked about taking him at 61 and went with Boogie Basham instead. And now you have the opportunity to right that wrong and say, listen, I remember we were really hot on this kid. Yeah, he went to the Chargers, kind of not the best situation. We think there's a lot here. We loved him when we talked to him 4 years ago. You're finally at a point now where you can start benefiting from, good scouting information when you did your draft classes. And I'm excited about those types of things. But it does mean the Bills get to continue to kind of bargain basement shop because they're going to think everybody's great value that they talked to before. But I do think that it's a very valuable thing to say, it is possible that the room in that One Bills Drive was talking about Josh Palmer versus Boogie Basham.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Well, I mean, with the amount that he signed for, obviously they had their eye on him. They think that he hasn't had a lot of tread off the tire, playing in that offense that he's playing in. And it just to quickly address the trolls, because we've been doing this a long time. We know that Spencer Brown was drafted in the third round, okay, and we're happy about that. Okay, we're not saying they should have taken Palmer over Basham and Brown. We're just saying
take it after Brown. Hey, that was a long. Spencer Brown was picked 93rd, man. There's a long way from 93 to 77.
But in the third round, as soon as you said third round, they're going to come out of the woodwork and say, "Well, they took Spencer in the third." All right.
They missed on Nico Collins too. We could be here all day, right? We could do this all day.
It's going to be a who's on first episode, honestly.